I'm going to share with you a writing resource that has helped me with my first drafts for a very long time. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Emotion Thesaurus. I love this little book so much. I got my first copy when I was 13, and I've had it open on my desk as I've been writing first drafts ever since. I have recently upgraded to a digital version of this book so that I can have it up on my computer, which actually makes it a little bit more helpful because if I forget it someplace or if I go write somewhere else, it can just be a little bit of a hassle for me to remember to bring it everywhere I go all the time. But I adore this book. And this book is a book, obviously, that breaks down all of the really big emotions and some specific ones too. I think there are like 120 different emotions, and they have entries for each of the different emotions, and they list like internal responses to these emotions, physical responses to these emotions, mental responses to these emotions, to help you better show instead of tell what a character is feeling. This book takes 130 different emotions and breaks them down for you and lists different mental, emotional, and physical responses to these different emotions. So that when you're writing, if you are trying to go fast and you can't think of what a character would be feeling in their body when they're angry, you can just go to the little anger entry in the book and read one of the responses, pick one that works for your scene, and move on. It is a godsend when you're writing first drafts. It has helped unstick me in those little points where I'm like, oh, I can't really think of a better way to write this. I just pull out the Emotion Thesaurus and it gives me a lot of ideas. So this is the Emotion Thesaurus. As you can see, it has 130 different emotions, and it's amazing. So we're gonna go over to the table of contents. Oh, side note, the two authors, I'm pretty sure both of them, but I know at least one of them are members of SCBWI. I'm a member of SCBWI as well, which is the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. They have a lot of great resources for people that want to get into traditional publishing and learn more about the industry, and specifically the children's and young adult world. So it's a very cool organization, and I highly recommend checking it out if you're interested. They do conferences and writing groups. I'm a member of a writing group through SCBWI, so that's very cool too. Here's the table of contents. This lists all of the emotions that are included in the thesaurus. So as you can see, there are a ton of them. Every single time I've tried to find an emotion, I've always been able to find it. And obviously there's some overlap between different emotions because a lot of these are connected, but it's very cool to be able to pinpoint exactly what the character is feeling and be very specific in your description. So they have like the big ones, like happiness and anger, but they also have like sappiness or even vulnerability and wanderlust. I've never used wanderlust ever before in my life, but apparently they've included it in the thesaurus. But that's also because I guess I'm writing mysteries and thrillers, so my characters are more, I heavily frequent the fear, panic, frustration, anger sections, not so much the wanderlust sections of this thesaurus. So they give you some writing too in here, talking about the power of emotion, how emotion is super important. We all know emotion is important, that's why we got the book. Admittedly, I've never read this in my years and years of owning this book, so we're just gonna skip straight to the emotions. So if you have the digital version, like I do, it's super easy. Like I just have it open on the Kindle app on my computer and I can just scroll through all the different emotions on the left. So let's say I want to write anger. I always give you a definition of the emotion. So in this case, we have strong displeasure or wrath, usually aroused by a perceived wrong. We all know what anger is. We've all felt it. So they start by breaking down the physical signals and behaviors. I use this because I write from the first person point of view. I usually don't use this when the narrator is trying to talk about themselves, but I will use this if they're talking to a character and that character is angry and they're describing how the other person looks. Because the narrator character can only speak to what they are feeling internally. They can't speak to how the person they're talking to is feeling internally, but they can describe the physical sensations. So they give you a lot of them. Flaring nostrils, noisy breathing, sweating, holding the elbows wide from the body, sweeping arm gestures, handling objects or people roughly, a high chin, legs that are planted wide. Not all of these are going to work. Like baring one's teeth is not always going to work. Like if you have two characters that are having a fight and one of them is like, I can't believe that you ate my leftovers that I left in the fridge last night. Those were mine. They had my name on them. How could you do this to me? And then you have the other character like bare his teeth probably not the right place for it. But maybe, you know, a red, like his face could get red, or they could make some sort of sweeping arm gesture when they're like, you left them in the fridge, how was I supposed to know? You didn't label it correctly. They can do something like that. So they keep going. These are still a continuation of the physical descriptions, and then they give you internal sensations. This is mostly what I focus on when I'm trying to convey my narrator character's emotions. So grinding one's teeth, muscles quivering, pulse speeding, a pounding heartbeat, body tensing, and heat flushing through the body. Not all of these are gonna work. Like, you know, if my character in my horror book just watches someone get murdered in front of her and she's really angry because she didn't want that person to get murdered, she's probably not gonna be like grinding her teeth and then being like, how could you? But heat could flush through her body and then she could scream, how could you? So you have to, as the author, pick out the ones that work. These categories are fairly broad. There are many instances where grinding your teeth could be an appropriate angry response to something, but it's probably just not going to be like the murder situation. It will be a different situation. So you as the author have to pick out which ones make the most sense depending on your story. So then they give you mental responses. So this is irritability, poor listening skills, jumping to conclusions, irrational reactions, demanding immediate action, impetuosity, taking inappropriate action or risks, or fantasizing violence. So those things you can have if you're writing from the perspective of a character. You can use that in their internal monologue. You can have poor listening skills, like you can show someone else talking to the character and that character is just not at all paying attention to what they're saying and focused on something else in the internal monologue. Or fantasizing violence, you can have them in their internal monologue be talking about how they, you know, want to rip that guy's eyeballs out for killing that person. And then you have acute or long-term responses for this emotion. I never really use that, like road rage, taking anger out on innocent bystanders. But that's also because of the genre I write in. Everything is very immediate. So I'm not usually writing long-term responses to things like that. Like I'm not going to have like skin problems, such as eczema or acne in my thriller, because there's not going to be enough time they're like being angry in order for them to develop eczema. They're just going to be really angry that that person was murdered. They're not going to have like acne spring up on them as they're standing there being really angry. But this could be very helpful in certain genres. And same with the signs that the emotion is being suppressed. Again, I don't really use this that much, but it could be really helpful if like I'm starting out a new book or I'm doing like the book after the climax where somebody was just murdered and then they're like suppressing that emotion, that anger, and then I can use these to inform kind of how that character is doing. But I've never really needed to use this for that. I more use it for the immediate emotional physicalities. Then they give you like this feeling may escalate to these other feelings that are all linked, or may de-escalate to these other feelings that are all linked. Haven't really used those, but they're there. And associated power verbs, I guess blaze, consume, explode, flare, inflame, provoke, quake. I haven't really used these either, but they're there. So you get these for every single emotion in the thesaurus, and I find it really helpful as a writing tool. It's not rocket science. It's not a super complicated program. It's not a super complicated book, but I really like having it as a tool because I find that it can help unstick me if I'm trying to write a fast draft, or if I've used like my stomach drops way too many times and I want to think of something new. It can just jog my memory or help me think of something a little bit different. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. I just wanted to share that with you in case you thought that that might be a helpful addition to your writing desk and might also be useful if you're writing first drafts. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be super grateful if you could give it a like and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos sharing actionable writing tips and resources that help me make my own writing better. I am the author of ghostly paranormal thrillers, including the They Stay series, which tells the story of a teenage girl whose younger brother goes missing, but the only people who have any idea what happened to him are the ghosts who are in her small town cemetery. Do any of you use the Emotion Thesaurus? Do you find it helpful like I do? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody, and as always, happy writing.